Dr. Maria Rodriguez, a 35-year-old botanist, stood at the edge of the bayou, her eyes scanning the murky waters. She was joined by Jake, a 28-year-old local guide, and Emily, a 25-year-old graduate student and Maria's research assistant. Together, the three of them had ventured into the heart of the swamp, seeking to uncover its secrets and discover new species of plants. But as they journeyed deeper into the bayou, they began to realize that they were not alone. A malevolent presence lurked in the shadows, watching them with cold calculation. The shadow in the swamp, a mysterious and terrifying entity, was stirring, and it would not rest until it had claimed them as its own. As they pushed deeper into the swamp, the air grew thick with the scent of decay and death. Maria could feel the weight of the shadow's gaze upon her, and she knew that they had to be careful. Jake, sensing her unease, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, Maria," he whispered. "I know these waters like the back of my hand. We'll be safe." But as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the bayou, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that they were being herded towards some unknown fate. The shadow seemed to be moving closer, its presence growing stronger with every step. And then, without warning, Emily vanished. "Emily!" Maria screamed, her voice echoing across the water. "Where are you?" But there was no response. It was as if Emily had been swallowed whole by the swamp. Maria and Jake frantically searched the area, but there was no sign of her. The shadow seemed to be closing in, its darkness deepening and twisting around them. "We have to get out of here," Jake whispered urgently. "Now." As they turned to leave, Maria heard a faint whisper in her ear. "Don't go." It was Emily's voice, but it was different, colder and more menacing. Maria spun around, but there was no one there. "Emily, is that you?" Maria called out, her voice shaking. There was no response, but the whisper seemed to grow louder, more urgent. "Don't go. Don't leave me." Maria felt a chill run down her spine. Something was very wrong. She turned to Jake, her eyes wide with fear. "We have to find her," she whispered. Jake nodded, his face grim. "We'll find her, but we have to be careful. Something's not right here." As they searched the bayou, the shadow seemed to grow stronger, its presence more oppressive. Maria could feel its eyes upon her, boring into her skin. She knew that they were running out of time. Suddenly, Emily appeared in front of them, her eyes black as coal, her skin gray and decaying. Maria screamed, but Jake grabbed her arm, holding her back. "Emily, what's happened to you?" Maria whispered, her voice trembling. Emily didn't respond. Instead, she reached out a bony hand and beckoned Maria to follow her. Maria hesitated, but Jake pushed her forward. "We have to know what's going on," he whispered. As they followed Emily deeper into the bayou, the shadow seemed to grow stronger, its darkness deepening and twisting around them. Maria knew that they were walking into a trap, but she couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. And then everything went black. As Maria came to, she found herself in a dark, damp cavern. The air was thick with the scent of mold and decay. She could hear the sound of dripping water echoing off the walls. "Where am I?" Maria whispered, trying to sit up. But as she moved, she realized that she was tied down. Her wrists and ankles were bound to a cold metal table. "Jake?" Maria called out, panic rising in her voice. "Emily?" But there was no response. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Emily, but her eyes were still black as coal and her skin was still gray and decaying. "Welcome, Maria," Emily said, her voice low and menacing. "I've been waiting for you." Maria struggled against her restraints, but they were too strong. "What's going on, Emily?" Maria demanded. "What's happened to you?" Emily smiled, her lips curling up in a cold, mirthless grin. "I've been chosen," Emily said. "Chosen to fulfill an ancient prophecy. And you, Maria, are the key." As Emily spoke, the shadow seemed to grow stronger, its presence filling the cavern. Maria knew that she was in grave danger. "Jake!" Maria screamed, hoping against hope that he would hear her. But there was no response. And then Emily began to chant, her voice rising and falling in a strange, hypnotic rhythm. The shadow seemed to pulse with energy, its darkness deepening and twisting around Maria. Maria knew that she was running out of time. She had to escape, had to get out of the cavern before it was too late. With a surge of adrenaline, Maria struggled against her restraints, trying to break free. But they were too strong, too tight. As Emily's chanting grew louder, the shadow seemed to coalesce into a dark, swirling vortex. Maria felt herself being pulled towards it, felt herself being sucked into its depths. And then, everything went black. As Maria was sucked into the vortex, she felt a sense of weightlessness, as if she was floating in midair. The shadow seemed to be pulling her towards it, drawing her in with an otherworldly force. As she was pulled deeper into the vortex, Maria saw strange visions flashing before her eyes. She saw ancient civilizations, long-forgotten technologies, and mysterious creatures that defied explanation. The visions were disjointed and fragmented, but Maria sensed that they were trying to convey a message. She saw a glimpse of an ancient prophecy, one that spoke of a great reckoning that would soon be upon the world. As the visions faded, Maria found herself in a vast underground chamber. The room was filled with strange artifacts and devices, each one more mysterious than the last. At the far end of the room, Maria saw a figure standing on a raised dais. It was Emily, but her eyes were no longer black as coal. Instead, they shone with a fierce inner light. "Welcome, Maria," Emily said, her voice ringing out across the chamber. "I have been waiting for you. You have been chosen to fulfill an ancient prophecy, one that will determine the fate of the world." Maria was taken aback by Emily's words. She had no idea what prophecy Emily was talking about, or what role she was supposed to play in it. As she looked around the chamber, Maria saw strange symbols etched into the walls. They seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, as if they were alive. "What prophecy?" Maria demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. "What are you talking about?" Emily smiled, her eyes glinting with a knowing light. "The prophecy of the shadow," she said. "It speaks of a great reckoning, one that will soon be upon us, and you, Maria, are the key to unlocking it." As Emily spoke, the symbols on the walls began to glow with an eerie light. Maria felt a sense of dread building inside her, as if she was trapped in some kind of ancient, mystical web. "I don't know what you're talking about," Maria said, trying to back away from Emily, but her feet seemed rooted to the spot, as if she was unable to move. "You will soon understand," Emily said, her voice dripping with malice. "The shadow will reveal all to you in time." As Emily spoke, the chamber began to darken, as if the very lights themselves were being extinguished. Maria felt a sense of claustrophobia building inside her, as if she was trapped in a living nightmare. And then, everything went black. As Maria regained consciousness, she found herself back in the bayou, lying on a muddy bank. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the water. Jake was sitting next to her, his eyes filled with concern. "Maria, what happened?" Jake asked, helping her sit up. "We were searching for Emily, and then you just disappeared." Maria rubbed her head, trying to remember. "I don't know," she said. "I think I was kidnapped by Emily. She was acting really strange. And then I ended up in some kind of underground chamber." Jake's eyes widened. "That's crazy," he said. "We have to get out of here now." As they stood up to leave, Maria saw something moving in the water. It was Emily, her eyes still black as coal. "Emily, what's going on?" Maria demanded. "What did you do to me?" Emily didn't respond. Instead, she began to chant, her voice rising and falling in a strange, hypnotic rhythm. The shadow seemed to pulse with energy, its darkness deepening and twisting around Maria. "Jake, we have to get out of here," Maria said, grabbing his arm. "Now." As they turned to leave, Maria felt a strange sensation, like the shadow was pulling her back. She tried to resist, but it was too strong. "Jake, help!" Maria screamed, feeling herself being pulled into the water. Jake grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back, but the shadow was too powerful. Maria felt herself being dragged underwater. The last thing she saw was Jake's terrified face. As the water closed over Maria's head, she knew she was in grave danger. The shadow was taking her to a place where she might never return. And then, everything went black. For more scary horror stories, please subscribe.